We'll figure it out. Hey, what's going on, everybody? And thanks for joining us again. We are live. I don't have my sheet, so the topics for today. Brian, can you hand me it? It's got to be by you. Oh, it's over here.
Oh,
Sorry,
there we
Dave.
go.
We got people all around.
got 'em.
It was a crazy start. To look forward to coming attractions, we have Sophia Stewart, the mother of the Matrix. She's coming on our show. She was supposed to be on today, but we in the studio want to take some time to further read her books and prepare for the episode because it's going to be a wild ride.
It's a dense topic.
And David was able to get a flavor of Sophia's personality and how kind of the show will go. And that being said, I was still on the phone with her trying to cut the call as we were getting ready for today's episode. But that being said, thanks for joining us today. We are live, and on today's docket, 1, U.S. regulators want cars to include drunk driving detection technology. Secondly, you know who's client list, and that'll be an interesting conversation. And we're going to wrap the episode up with secret underground network in a New York City synagogue leads to a brawl between police and worshipers. And man, just talk about wildness. That being said, don't forget, the reason we do the live shows is because we want to get you involved. So jump into the comment section and get involved in the dialogue. We want your perspective to bring a little zhuzh to the conversation. That being said, let me introduce my co-host and my good friend, David Cunningham.
Well, hey, it's good to be here today. It's a little sad here this Tuesday, given the state of the national championship game. Not the biggest fan of how that ended up, but yeah, I know. Tell me about it, right? But it's a nice warmish / cloudy, rainy day here in the great state of Ohio and the great city.
Yeah, and it's because Voldemort won a championship.
That is true. See, it's a sour day. I think we're all taking we're a little numb to college football right now, so I'm going to ignore that for a few months until we start games back up again here. But yeah, I think this is going to be a good show. I am excited for the first topic because I've been harping on this forever. But Alex, you know what? We can't do this show without our buddy, the producer, the wizard behind the keyboard. Brian, how are we doing today?
Oh, we're doing fabulous. BC Mo here. Not really looking forward to this rain outside, but looking at my forecast, I see some snow and cold temperatures coming in for the next couple days. Not too long, but just enough to cross fingers, hopefully open the rest of the resorts that we got going on around us.
All right, let's kick the episode off. Like I said, the first topic of the day is that U.S. regulators want cars to include drunk driving detection technology, which is a wild place to be. And that being said, the U.S. government took the first step Tuesday towards requiring new cars to have technology that checks whether the driver is drunk. At an event in Washington, D.C., officials with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the nation's top road safety regulator, said the technology could help prevent thousands of annual road deaths involving alcohol. Almost 13,400 people died in the U.S. alcohol-related crashes in 2021 alone. And I'm sure that number's gone up since then. Just wrapping up here, the agency is still exploring how best to precisely detect and measure impairment in drivers and would seek multiple rounds of public input before creating any regulations to force automakers to include the feature. That being said, let's just acknowledge the first word in that statement, which was the agencies, which are parties in our government or bodies in our government that can create laws and dictate your liberty, totally outside the checks and balances of the beautiful 3 balanced parties that you were taught in government growing up so much.
Oh, absolutely. And I think if you go to the actual page of this bill, it's 3 or 4 lines of text, and 3,000 pages of the infrastructure bill, 3 to 4 lines of text are the difference between a car costing $5,000 to $10,000 more or not. The difference between you being able to effectively start your car 100% of the time, or at least reliably start your car if it's not like a mechanical failure and all that. But this is now just an extra thing to go wrong. Let's take the whole segment of you're proven, you have to prove your innocence to your own car in which you purchase yourself. Let's just throw that out the window. This is just another factor that can a failure point to go wrong in automobiles. And they're already expensive. They're already kind of a pain in the ass, and it can be.
You're the one paying for it, not the manufacturer.
Exactly, and you're on the hook if it goes wrong. This isn't, sure you have your 3-year, 36,000 mile warranty, but in the case it's going to fail, and it will fail because there is no 100% certainty in any automobile. This is just another factor that's just going to go wrong. So now let's introduce the government believes we're just out here driving drunk, doing whatever we want to do, and causing problems. This is just such an over.
Wait, can we also acknowledge just a figure I read through it so fast I didn't even think about it. Almost 13,400 people died in the U.S. from alcohol-related crashes in 2021 alone. Dude, do you have any grounding in basic statistics? We're talking 350 million people. And what is the bullshit they've sold us? That this is the worst thing ever and it's killing everybody. Everybody's toasted on the roads and everybody's dying in a car. Let's just take a moment to resonate with 13,000 people. And listen, I'm willing to take the classic president's approach. One life is too many. But get your head out of your ass and be a little bit realistic. Yeah. 13,000 is a drop in a bucket is too much compared to 13,000 out of 350 million people.
Yeah, and if we're gonna base that, well, let's just go with the president's logic. Let's go with the lawmakers, the people who write this bill, logic on one life sacrifice is too many. How do you justify war? Mm-hmm. How do you justify giving guns over to just anything?
Or a war that's not even ours.
Not even ours.
Let's take your son, throw him in Ukraine, and one life's too many on the highway. And it's no. Because I don't mean to do this that soon, but I do. I'm going to do it anyway. That being said, I'm driving around today, and the podcast of choice was listening to Jordan Peterson interviewing a gentleman in England right now. Anybody in the room, Vinny, Doug, anybody privy to what's going on in England right now? London?
No.
Specifically? No. So there's a huge, it's a global protest, but it's across the country, and it's totally being hidden from us. But in England, there is a protest against these state cameras that are being installed all over the place to watch everybody. It's going to micromanage everybody's move.
Like China has?
Totally. Yeah. So again, this is just that first step towards what Doug was about to take it there to the social credit score, right? And a lot of the dialogue, again, that doesn't seem very parallel to making sure that drunk drivers aren't on the road. But here's where you need to consider it. Okay, for right now, what is the technology we have? We have the ability to measure blood alcohol content through your breath. That's a technology we have. It is only a matter of time before touching your tongue to a palate says if you have meth in your system. Well, where do you draw the line between that amphetamine and Adderall? Where do you draw the line then to every state has marijuana, but you're not allowed to drive behind the wheel of marijuana? And again, there's a statistic that nobody wants to play with, and I'll wrestle with it every time. The fact that consistent users of marijuana are safer drivers than sober drivers. And that's a Harvard study, and it's proven because those that are often doing it, one, they've built up a tolerance to it, but then also they're hyper aware of the road. They're so skeeved out. They're watching every move. They're hyper attentive. Whereas the casual, regular, sober driver is so reckless and careless because you do it a million times. Again, back to statistics. People get afraid to go on planes, but you are a million times more likely to get in a car crash than any other way of travel. Why? Because one, you do it more often. That increases statistics. But two, it's just commonplace. Everybody's behind a car, the idiots and the attentive. So it's just an interesting place because one, there's situations where I think the state, say someone's a bad driver, but I think they're actually better drivers than the 68-year-old you won't take a license from. Yeah. That being said, I am now giving faith to an agency that's outside the checks and balances of our three branches of government, and they're going to determine what's right, what's wrong, how we're going to measure it, and to what extent we'll do that. And I just want to make one final point, and this is where it gets back to the London thing. They're going, how much of this do we need to do? You've already given me a tax for using diesel. There's so much congestion in London that they've made a congestion tax. It's like $50 a day you want to drive.
Yeah, it's a tax
so you got to pay to drive. $50 a day. So at what point do you draw the line? Right now, it's to police drunk driving. 13,000 out of 350 million because it's just dire. That's 365 days. So now I want you to multiply 300. You don't have to actually do it, but I want you to multiply. It's rough.
You're at home. Yeah, multiply
350 million times 365. That's the odds we're playing with here. 13,000 of those interactions resulted in drunk driving. One is too many. I know. But still, let's be realistic here. This isn't the problem the corporate press is trying to make it out to be so they can police this further.
Yeah, and you notice where all of this news is coming from. They're coming from cities that have quite a bit of public transport, that have quite a bit of infrastructure to be able to walk around. And there's nothing wrong with that. Being around, being able to walk to, the bar, a restaurant, your favorite spot, library, whatever. That's nice. That's a good thing to have. But it seems like we're starting to get closer and closer to the people who are writing these laws are the ones that don't actually have to live with the daily consequences of actually doing what the law states it well. And this is such a hard thing to get people to understand. It's like, well, what are you against drunk driving? No, I'm against drunk driving. I'm not for drunk driving. Show me someone who is for drunk driving. It's gonna be a pretty sparse room, but it's the fact that they're forcing it upon you. I can't just vote for this. If this was up for a ballot, this was like a provisional ballot in Ohio. It's like, all right, Nate, every car in Ohio is gonna have a drunk driving monitor. Yes or no? Okay, at least if I may say no, but if the majority of the state says yes, well, all right, that's democracy playing out. That's your vote playing out. But this is 3 lines of text, and the 3 lines of text essentially say we allow this agency to create this rule to enforce this policy. Oh my God, that's not in the spirit of why we do these laws. That's not the spirit of why we write this. And that's only 3 lines of text in like a 3,000 page. Essentially, it's a novel. It's a novel of all these.
Yeah, aren't you curious what else might be hidden within the beautiful text?
That's why they don't show it before they vote on it. There's no public comment before the vote. There's no, all right, we're going to vote for this. Here's that. That's why they very rarely ever want to do single issue bills, because just that bill, if that were to pass the representative democracy the way we have now, you would just get flamed, you get grilled. Like, oh my God, the mother of 8 can't start her car in the morning and it's cold outside and she's trying to get to work and do all that. Let's paint the saddest sob story we possibly can, and you're at fault for this. It Jesus Christ, it boils my blood to such an extent because there's no recourse. Once this is in, that's it. Here we go. We just have to live with it every day. And just to allow this, and it's just so slimy too. That's what I hate about it, Alex. It's slimy.
Almost as slimy as wearing all Nike. What you got to say?
It's about 37 people a day.
Yeah, that's sad. It's sad. And we don't
across 350 million.
The rethink tank wants there to be no drunk
Nike
driving
on the screen. Oh.
No drunk driving on this on this podcast. I think we're anti-drunk driving, but at the same time, it's just reality. Distracted driving. You're on your phone, you get hit by a car, or you hit another car right in front of you. Are they going to ban phones? Is there a camera? They're like, oh, no, use your phone, can't do that. Well, my dying grandma's calling me for her last breath, and she wants to call me, and sorry, your Toyota Camry won't let you do that. That's at what, again, to your point, at what point do we stop? At what point do we've had enough? I don't want this anymore. And this is where my New Year's resolution was to be optimistic. This is where I'm going to be pessimistic. Yeah. So I don't see a correction for this, and it's just going to get worse.
That being said, I'm so distracted by how much Nike there is.
It's only 2
Do you have comments?
Are we finishing?
No, I'm saying on the screen.
No.
Okay.
How many Ricky asked how many DUIs a year there are.
I'd be curious. I don't know. You're the Jamie. You didn't try looking that up?
That's a me question.
Yeah.
All right. That being said.
But a DUI doesn't mean someone died from drunk driving.
No, it just means that somebody was risking the biscuit.
And we have a system to hold people accountable.
And let's be real, out of 13,000, those are the ones that ended in an incident. And there's definitely way more than that actually did it. But maybe that speaks to how it isn't actually the danger they try to make it out to be. Here's the problem. When I'm in a court, right? I'm at a court and people are like, really, 82 should be 40 miles an hour. And you're like, yeah, it should be, but it isn't. It's 25. Well, I'm just picking it. It's 25. It should be 40. Well, it isn't. So you broke the rule. If we're all trying to share a space and we're making rules and we're against rule breakers, regardless of whether or not you agree with the rule, this is breaking the rule. So the question I come up with is, at the point at which you disagree with it, what are your options? Civil disobedience, or go to the place that's making these rules and compel them to change it. Because the reality is, if enough of your neighbors also agree that this should be 40 miles an hour and little Susie playing with her ball isn't at risk near that road, then yeah, they'll change it. So here's the issue. We are so locked tight in our local government. It's become so politicized and so gridlocked that we actually can't accomplish the will of the people to keep up with the will of the people. I imagine 50 years ago, there was a consideration of what the speed limit of Rockside Road should be. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that was probably the first and the last time that question was ever considered. So nobody is compelled enough to go to their city council and make the change. But then also they've made the gears of justice so difficult to turn that people find it a waste of time and a wasted effort to even take on those lengths. So that all being said, back to the guy being interviewed by Jordan Peterson. Yeah. He is being prosecuted. He was arrested by the English government. And here's the curious part. What did he do? He was there is like these vigilantes that are going through and destroying the cameras and breaking the monitoring systems, and he showed support for them online. Okay, he didn't do it. He didn't carry out any of these actions. He supported it. And the state's saying that you are supporting vigilantism and breaking the laws, and you are really, they can't find the culprits, so you're the one who's culpable. And he's like, whoa, but I didn't do anything. I'm just showing support, and I'm supposed to have the freedom to make an opinion. And so the question begs, where does civil disobedience become a problem? I don't think anybody in here would disagree about standing against a law, whether for a good cause or a bad cause, people that just throw themselves in the street. Okay, besides just inconveniencing everybody, what about an EMS truck that needs to get to an emergency? You don't give a shit. I don't care about that EMS truck. I want to free Palestine. Okay, well, that's what makes your issue better than the person whose artery is split open. Can I give you a perfect example? This came from that podcast, and I literally just kept saying in my head, do not forget this. Do not forget this. German beach towel syndrome. Something I learned today.
Okay.
It's a concept in England more than anything. So what is it? The English make fun of the Germans for when they share a resort, a beach resort. You can go down, get a beach towel, and there's these beautiful, lawn chairs, these chairs you lay out on to tan and enjoy the ocean and the sunset. Well, the Germans at these resorts, the English make jokes about it, and apparently it's a trend to where the Germans will be the first to wake up in the day, get these beach towels, and cover the beach chairs. And then throughout the day, you come to realize nobody's using the beach chairs. They're totally empty. And the reason they do that is so that humans aren't obstructing the beauty of the ocean. And so this is an analogy towards climate change, right? Taylor Swift's jet is nowhere near as encumbersome as grandma in a car. Like, some kid in Chicago can be admirable and ride his bike in the middle of January to save the planet. But it would be unrealistic for a group of the populace of people to require the grandma in the middle of January to take her groceries home on a bike.
Yeah.
It isn't realistic. So we need to make life livable. So at some point, there's a group of people that are saying the plant, like, no, there's no person in their right mind, I guarantee you could find, that would say, yes, I'm against the environment. I want a dirty planet.
Yep.
Like, nobody is conscious in that regard. So we can find virtues in this pursuit, but it can't be a totality, because then who determines that?
Yeah.
But then even more so, recognize the people that are also being crippled by it. Grandma can't get her groceries. Regular families can't just enjoy the beach.
Yeah.
Like, there's a whose beauty or favoritism resonates over the other. Like, at some point we need to make this cohabitate between people.
You can't have a monopoly over the certain part of the land, or especially in a shared space. You can't have a monopoly over the choice of what everyone else gets to do.
Exactly.
Especially if we want to live in a society, and I think that's a little mean to death at this point. But if you want to, there is a social contract in which we must be together. And at a certain point, do we get to a situation where there's just too much force? Well, just stay inside. That's all the government really wants you to do. It's all anyone ever wants you to do. Just stay inside. Right. There's no, and if you go outside, it's just going to be problems. There's so many rules, regulations. Just people are going to stand in your way of just either enjoying yourself, going out for a drive, doing whatever you feel is necessary for your own happiness, and you're sacrificing your happiness for someone else's virtue. Right. Essentially what this would eventually be. And I think, to tie this all back to the drunk driving provision, this is exactly what this is. So I bet there's the people who wrote this probably don't drive cars, and they're definitely afraid of driving cars because there's accidents, distracted drivers, and
none of them are young, right?
Yeah, none of them are. They're not the people that have to do this every day. Cleveland, I think, is somewhat walkable around the area, but it's in places where I think most of the Clevelanders live, around the suburbs. You do have to drive. You do have to get to places. It's the reality of existence and being in the city. And these are the types of folks, the blue collar folks, people that have to drive every day to work and, do 20, 30 miles, go through traffic. And now it's just one extra annoyance they got to go through every single day. Well, the politicians either get themselves driven, they can walk there because they live close enough, because they have, insider trading, doing all this wonderful stuff. I'm sure there's probably a company that supplies this, that lobbied these politicians to say, hey, we'll give you some benefits on one end, or we'll hire you as a consultant. And next thing you know, now everybody in the United States has to have a drunk driving provision in their automobile, whether it works or not, whether it's reliable or not, doesn't matter. They got theirs. They're out. They're even if they're voted out, well, they succeeded in what they set out to do because of some lobbyist group or some, it doesn't matter who.
Like politicians too, like, you got to remember, the biggest states have the most representatives in the House.
Yep.
And these big states have some sort of good public transportation. Like Chicago, you can take their public, trains or whatever, subway, all across there. You don't need to really have a car there. Well, yeah, like you were saying, Cleveland, you can walk, but if you live out here, you got to drive to get down there to do that walking. We don't have that great public.
What percentage do you say the United States is legitimately you can live there and really don't need a car? 2% of the whole landmass of the United States, 2%. And I think that's generous, quite honestly. So 98% of the United States, you're probably going to need a car to function onto a certain level within your community, your group, organization, whatever you want to do. All the entertainment you want to have, you can't live out in, rural Medina. And well, there you go. All my happiness is within, 10, let's say you're really good at walking 20 miles within that region. It's just unrealistic for you to suspect. And, someone in New York City, it's like, well, too bad. You're,
right.
I don't want you drunk driving. So you're going to need to do a breathalyzer. And I don't think any of you guys know anyone who's been, had a DUI or had to, actually do a breathalyzer,
No.
those aren't really reliable just to begin with. And
That's a fact.
And that's one that's really forced upon you. But that's forced upon you because you broke the rules, and that's how we're, as a society, as people who enjoy each other. That's what we all decided to say, hey, you've been drunk driving a little too much. You need to breathalyze this. And those don't even work.
So before I address that point, we're going to get into wrapping thoughts. So let me just say, this is a topic that David's wanted me to breach on here forever.
Oh, I've been.
And I'm not going to. I'm just going to, like a plane, just touch it and keep going. Just a touch and go. But there's a lot of disgruntled positions around the camera tickets, right? So there's these speeding tickets that you get by camera, not being pulled over by an officer. You have the constitutional right to face your accuser. I get yelled at all the time in our court that these are illegal. The only thing that the Supreme Court of Ohio has determined is where they need to be filed, which is at a municipal court. Now, what is still at odds is the legitimacy of these citations. There's people that stand against them, and there's a lot of agencies that are benefiting from them that are in huge support. That being said, let's acknowledge that there is a minor intrusion here, right? Like, I'm going off on faith in your technology. The problem is we've relied on speed radar so much to a totality that when you look at these judges and lawmakers, these older folk that are pulling the strings, and you say to them, yeah, but aren't you seeing how much blind faith you have in this technology? That's how they get you. The technology works flawlessly without bias or, intervention agenda at first. Then it becomes a fabric of your society, and then you would be ridiculous to question if that piece of equipment worked on that day. Was it meddled with? Like, nobody here is saying that you can't make a speed detector that is flawless. We can. The technology exists. But you can't prove to me that device you used that day, on that day, wasn't meddled with. And so another subject that runs parallel to this, I looked at the judge that I work for. She's been in it forever. And there's literally nobody smarter in the craft that I know that I could ask this question to. And I look at her and I ask, so we're going to go to an election where there's nothing but deep fakes. We're not going to be able to tell what's real. I mean, I could literally get Kanye to sing an Adele song to me, and you wouldn't be able to know it wasn't him. So if video evidence is the most credible evidence in a courtroom, how can we heavily rely on it once it becomes corrupted like this? And without even a second guess, just blind faith. Because I think it's a generational difference, and it's faith in a government that wasn't blatantly, they were screwing you. But at the time, it wasn't blatantly screwing you. Whereas now, you're pulling behind the curtain of Oz, and you're like, am I the only one seeing this? So when you look at her, she very quickly, oh my God, they're going to have FBI detection software. And she goes, there's this thing called metadata. And they'll be able to go into the metadata and check to see if it's original. It's like, listen, I know metadata. I'm well beyond the metadata. But then also, do you not think that a computer whiz, like, I don't know, a Snowden, who could break into an FBI server or an NSA server, I don't know, could figure out how to craft or mask metadata? And so here's the other thing that can't be said, but you also then, how quickly you brushed off, like the water off the back of a duck, you quickly just go, oh yeah, just have faith in the FBI. It's like, wait, but how do I know they don't have a bad intention here? Or it could not, Occam's razor, not everything has to be an intentional malfeasance. Yeah. Sometimes it's just, we're surrounded by morons. And guess what? The moron did a moron. That being said, landing this plane, wrapping thoughts is a perfect example. In the fight against these camera tickets, Brecksville, the beautiful city of Brecksville, they would never do that to you. We love you people. We would never do that to you. But here's what we will do to preserve the sanctity of our beautiful, wealthy, untapped community. We are going to put cameras at the entrances of all the roads coming into our city. It's not going to detect the speed. It's just going to be monitoring the comings and goings of our city. We're going to be looking at license plates, looking at faces, and just monitoring it. Now, here's what's interesting. This is not what
are they doing that?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep. It's a real
That's
thing.
here. That being said, That's been around for years. We have a condo in Florida. It's been around there. Longbow Key, Doug's been there. It's been there for years. But Longbow Key is a unique spot. You want to know why? It's an island that has one road. One road goes through the whole thing.
One grocery store.
Well, you got a couple Publix. But that being said, one road. So there's one entrance on either side of the island. To me, the camera system makes sense because now you can determine if there's a guy on the run or something. You could tell he got on the island, but he hasn't gotten off. Like, it's pretty like there's a utility there that is so unique. You really can't maximize the same utility in any other scenario. Like Brecksville, there's 100 different roads. So even if you were monitoring every other road, there's ways to sneak beyond it, whatever. So when you take this in a vacuum, the Brecksville scenario, we would never give you camera tickets. Okay, today. And this is how this begins. First, we set up the cameras and we're watching every move. And then we get you comfortable with that. Then we start using it to monitor crime. Then we start using it to monitor this crime, speeding. Then it evolves. So like David, I hear you and you bring up a lot of great points that I can resonate with in regards to the who is the victim of these scenarios. It more so chokes out the less fortunate and less wealthy. All of that being said, I totally agree on the practicality of it. But I need somebody to take the macroscopic George Orwellian view here. We just continue to march steadfast into that future, and we pretend we're not. And then I'm going to put, like, again, the meme I bring up all the time. You've got a lady in the 60s in black and white going, oh, I don't want to say that on the phone because they may wiretap the phone. And then you go to somebody, a mom in their kitchen today, and she goes, wiretap? What's a good brownie recipe? Like, that's the world we live in. And so not only is it not enough, George Orwell would be rolling, oh, no, I paid thousands of dollars to put the government's audio recording device in my pocket. And now I'm going to let it determine whether or not I'm fit to use my vehicle. Yep. You might not live this lifestyle, but there are people that drive cars not on roads. Like, they have enough property to just ride them, or they go mudding, so they go to particular properties to ride. I don't owe you any type of stripping of my liberty in regards to my sobriety when I'm on my private property. Now, again, I get this, the state's interest in making sure you don't kill yourself, and there's still lines there too. But at what point is it, I'm on my property, and I just want to rev the engine? You don't have the freedom to do that. You've had too many Buffalo Traces. So at what point, to me, it's a slippery slope, and it looks on its surface like it could just be for public safety, and there's a policy reason for it. But the second you open these floodgates, it's just everything else comes with it.
And at what point do they stop as well? We're seeing and this isn't a free market. This is a market that's being forced upon us. So first off, it's, drunk driving. You have a few too many beers. I think everyone can agree. Well, that's fine. Yeah. Then it starts. I hate to get dystopian. I would hate to get, this is fanatical and extremist, but there eventually could be a certain point where just viewpoints like, well, you like Israel too much. I don't want you on the road. Oh,
exactly.
You like and then next week it's Palestine. Oh, you like Palestine a little too much.
Oh, you're too angry. You're not allowed to be on the, or you're
exactly.
crying too much, or something.
Oh yeah, you're being emotional.
How did we know you weren't going to drive this to the? You were going to go to a rally.
You forgot to take your meds.
Yeah, that too. Boom. The government pill comes out. You didn't take the pill. You didn't get the juice. You didn't alter your genes.
But at the same time, what Brian just said is a perfect reason of why that could be a selling point of, oh, this is just a reminder. You have a medication you need to take every day. Yeah. Oh, you're getting hey, I had a medication I was supposed to take this morning that I was prescribed. I forgot. If I would have gotten in my car and my car would remind me, I didn't even have to, I would go back inside, come back in, it's fine. This is all we're trying to do. We're just trying to help you out with then having the veil over of still trying to get as much control as they possibly can in before they're controlling who's actually on the road or not. That's very
Totally.
interesting.
Yeah, that's why I encourage everyone listening and watching here today. Write to your congressperson and tell them to eat shit.
But but let's also agree. At what point do we start acknowledging that just ain't cutting it anymore? Like, one, you vote with your views, you vote with your dollars. We all acknowledge that. But at some point, we got to really see, like, we now know the agency you want to give the power to put a detection technology in your car literally sent hundreds of agents to induce a riot at the Capitol because in government documents, MAGA movement needed to be disbanded. That's insane. That's insane. Whether or not it did need to be disbanded, who makes them the deciders of that? You know, that person you told me to write to, big guy. Yeah, I'd vote for that guy. The person that's making these decisions to put a detection monitor in my car or send hundreds of agents to induce Americans to commit a crime. Yeah, they aren't voted for. They aren't policed by us. They get to do whatever they want. They get to make any laws they want. And I'm supposed to trust them with anything? Anything. Why would I ever trust them with anything?
Yeah, no, and again, 3 to 4 lines of text. That's all it is.
So you
That's all
can't.
it was.
So writing to your congressperson is moot. Get angry and start speaking your mind. Stand for something and have a conversation with your neighbor. So your neighbor might get their head out of their ass and they might start realizing that we need to make something happen. A beautiful concept that I will always carry, and I reiterate, I parrot it all the time. But manifest destiny. This country became what it was because the newspaper was created at the same time as bars, pubs, and coffee shops. So you had public places where everybody could commute and meet, and you had a central news source. Yeah, there was propaganda in it. Some of it was true. Some of it was bullshit. But one common thread was me and you are coming to the table with the same set of facts. So then when you disagree and I agree, now we've created 5 different realities. There are portions of this country that aren't even living within the same reality of each other. And that's consciously constructed. But that all being said, how you beat this, it's a lot more metaphysical and it's not as easily measured or seen. But writing a letter to nobody that does nothing is not going to save you. Looking your friend that just wants to talk about Roblox and making him a little bit uncomfortable and making him see that, like, dude, the last 3 presidents went to this pervert's island. You got to resonate with that. If what I'm saying makes you uncomfortable, how uncomfortable do you think the child was? And those are the people running our country. And this will be a good transition to the next topic, but I don't know. Let's wrap it up and pass it to Brian.
No, yeah. Damn, I hate this so much. It just, again, boils my blood. There's not a whole lot we can do about it other than just bitch, moan, and complain. And again, I agree with you. We got to get enough people to bitch, moan, and complain until someone with authority goes, oof, this might hurt my bottom line, and therefore I need to change. And it's finding that 1 or 2 people and really appealing to, oh God, I hate this, but appealing to that authority to be able to change that rule set in which we are now forced to comply with, or else I guess we can't go to work, or you're just gonna have to buy a used car and make it run real long. We can talk to Cubans about how long they can make the 50s cars go. And they make them go for a while. They're still running to this day. So they might know a few things we don't. Brian, what do you think?
Salt's going to be the demise of our cars.
Ah, shit. You want to know why? It's because all that snow you want on the road.
Yeah, I do want that. And used cars aren't going to be around when I'm around. I always think of the 40-year-old virgin when what's her face? She's like, oh yeah, you could come with me, but first, can you like blow into this tube to turn the car on? So that's where that comes from. But I had something really good. Oh, I lost it.
Yeah, all right. Maybe you'll remember. We'll get back to it.
That being said,
that's the big one.
Well, is it a big one? I don't even know what to make of it anymore. I feel like this when the surface of this was first broken, this is like 3 years ago in this podcast. So it's like, here's what's interesting. Speaking about you-know-who's client list, we talking Jeffrey Epstein. That being said, the thing I can't get over is how little I care about this release, because all of these names have been real to me. I've known it. It's been fact. On the internet, you can see the flight logs. Like, you can literally pull up the flight logs. Yeah. I've been looking at the images for years. What's the significance of this big release and everything else? Is this makes what's been our reality forever an unavoidable reality in your boomers' parents' lives. That's what this is. Until it's said on Fox News or MSNBC, that's just my son who got tricked by the internet. But that's what the only reason you're invested in it being released by a judge is, one, making the system acknowledge that you arrested somebody for trafficking children, but refused to acknowledge who they were trafficked to. So, one, making the system make a self-reflection of itself. And whether it actually self-reflects, we can see it transparently for what it is. And then on the second hand, I could care less. I already know what it says. There's not a name on there that surprised me besides that crippled vegetable Stephen King. That shit threw me through a whirlwind.
Hawking.
Yeah, that's it.
Stephen Hawking.
Stephen Hawking. Beep, boop, bop, bop. But that being said, there's nothing on there that surprised me. Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Prince Andrew, all of these.
Was Jimmy Kimmel on there?
I don't think Jimmy Kimmel was on there.
Well, here's the thing. I've been searching, and all I can find are News's reprinting of the list. I can't find the list. Like, where are these government documents? You think somebody would have, a filing from the clerk's office
just
that
a PDF
shows
that you can show. Here it is. This
right
is from the government website.
So I really don't know. I appreciate you bringing it up, because an interesting element to this whole dialogue is that here's what I think. I bet you, for this to be such a show, the Jimmy Kimmel, Aaron Rodgers thing, for it to be such a show, that tells me, if I'm a betting man, he's not on the list. He's not. He probably isn't. And that way, we could spend the next 3 weeks talking about these two assholes and not a person who gagged a child. Yeah. Did that make you uncomfortable? It better have. It better have. Because the people running your country have made a system of inducing world leaders and insignificant figures with children. Yep. Let's blackmail them with children. And I think that's how it started. But then I also think they've developed an appetite, because that appetite shows itself in our media and our television, even our president. When his brain melts, his instincts kick in, and he can't even resist the of a child.
Children. Yeah, it's just so odd.
That's the leader.
Yeah, that's just gross. Now, the list came out, and we've been screaming about this for years. We wanted this to come out. We wanted this to be a thing. I think most people are hoping it'd be some sort of slideshow that would just list the name in like bright, colorful letters. Ooh, Donald Trump. Ooh, Hillary Clinton. Just all that, and be like, all right, they are guilty. Here's X, Y, and Z. But really, it's if you look in the thing, it is we do have to acknowledge. This is some flight logs, and
these are a list of people that went to an island. It does not in any way indicate what they had done on that island or that they committed any crimes.
They flew on Jeffrey Epstein's plane.
Right.
Not necessarily went to the island. It was they flew on the plane. So he also acknowledged he did not just diddle children at the island. It was also in his mansion given to him by Les Wexner, major
$50 million.
Ohio State University, gave him a house and really nice real estate within New York City. And there's also, I think, one in New Mexico, and there's one in Florida.
How does that song go? I know Victoria's Secret. Boy, you wouldn't believe she's an old man who lives in Ohio, preying on girls like me. Dude, it's a world. It's a weird world. Do you guys have anything to say before we push forward? Yeah,
no.
To me, there isn't much to be said. Now, you're seeing how one story lends itself to the next. We're gonna take ourselves to an interesting scenario in New York, but before we get to that, a major piece to this dialogue is the scary relationship between the evil actors in this conversation and Israel. So
Okay, all right,
Ghislaine
all right.
Maxwell
I see where you're going.
is a direct descendant of Mossad agents, head of Mossad. For those of you who don't know, that's Israel's CIA. And it's further coming out how ingrained Epstein had a deep relationship with our CIA, and it's coming out how embedded he was with Mossad, and it shouldn't come as a surprise. Ghislaine obviously is an extension of that. Her sister is in charge of like major news networks in our country, and also affiliated with Mossad. So
you want to know what else Ghislaine was a big person on? Reddit. At a certain point, she was the #1 Redditor, had the most karma of anyone on the platform.
What? Explain.
So
I'm not a Redditor, so I'm unfamiliar.
So to have the #1 karma is you either post like topics, post links, or post you start a topic, start a post, and you get upvotes from there, or you comment and you get upvotes from there. So to be the #1 of all of Reddit, of all of just neckbeards in their basement, people who have nothing better to do, terminally online people who spend all their days. I'm one of them. I spend all my time on Reddit. Can't even break a fraction of what Ghislaine Maxwell doing. And she's also trafficking children. And
so what do you make of the Redditor piece? Like what do you deduce from that?
So it used to be, so part of the conspiracy was when she was taken in prison, there was this one account that kind of alluded to her being her. It wasn't, I don't think she's really trying to hide it, but she wasn't very obvious about it. It'd be like, for example, you called yourself the Tanker on Reddit, and like, well, rethink Tanker. Okay, you can see some parallels, and you kind of allude to it sometimes. You never outright promote yourself as that, and you just go, and then all of a sudden you get arrested, and you're no longer having access to the internet, and all of a sudden you just stop. For someone who posts multiple times every day, comments multiple times every single day, to all of a sudden stop at the same time she got arrested.
So, but let me ask you this though:
okay.
lead karma person.
Yep.
What are they doing? They're just like clearly she's not posting.
She's not posting
junk.
She's she's
right.
It's a lot of just news articles. A lot of just
is she just putting "Am I the asshole"?
No,
I did a trail of candy bars to this guy's bedroom, and a girl followed it. Am I the asshole? Yes, you are.
Nope. She was doing a lot of politics, a lot of world news, just news. She was really just reposting articles, but she was driving her own. She was driving a narrative. You can just see. You just go through the history of her posts, like, oh my god, she's this.
Did the narrative have to do with like in defense of Ghislaine? Like,
nope. It was just like
it had anything. Nothing. Like, here's puppies.
I don't want to say apolitical, but it definitely it wasn't like it wasn't like your Fox News aunt on Facebook, or your blue-haired liberal friend on Twitter. It wasn't like that. She's just it's kind of like a real slow burn of what she was
bizarre.
doing. I don't have anything necessarily to pull from, but it wasn't. But see that. Because I can't pull anything from it, it wasn't extravagant. It wasn't
juicy.
Yeah, it wasn't juicy. That candle wasn't burning very bright. It was just someone who's consistent, throwing things that are somewhat relevant, and just staying under the radar for as much as you can be, as active as you are on Reddit. Also, at the same time, just the time management of this person. Someone should probably interview on her that, because I'd love to see her day planner. She's got a lot going on.
Could it have been,
and I'm not even damn near posting anything on Reddit, and all of a sudden she's just the #1 person.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, could it have been somebody within her team?
It's possible.
Yeah, but why?
It's possible.
I was thinking that same thing. Like, for me, I've always personally thought this. Like, LeBron James can't be running his own Instagram. Like, he doesn't give a shit. So, like,
but with those spelling mistakes, I'll tell you, he probably is.
But at a certain point of like publicity and everything, like, you need to just like let go of something. You can't always, but for someone like her, why would she have somebody else doing her Reddit post? Like, there had to be some reason that she was so ingrained there and some other ulterior.
You know what? I want to draw upon that. I'm listening to an interview with Andrew Tate, And the kid George, who's like a part of used to be a part of Logan Paul's group, and he's a big religious kid, and they had a riff. He started his own podcast. He flies over to Romania. He interviews Andrew Tate. He goes, "Do you play Fortnite or anything? Like, do you play any?" And of course, that triggers him. Like, and he knew it would. I don't have time for that. Like, it's just to him, it's a total waste of time. And he goes like, "Really? You wouldn't even give it a try? Like, if you and I were just hanging out, and I hand you the controller, you wouldn't play it? Like, you don't have any downtime like that?" And he goes, "Listen, if I were to play Fortnite with you right now, I'd love it, but I would lose, and I don't lose. So then I would do this until I'm the #1 Fortnite player in the world, and I just don't have time for that." So, like, it's just funny. Like, yes, the guy plays a character, and he's an extreme version of it all. But to me, I found it very funny that he doesn't even want to indulge in something that could just be fun because the competitive element of it, I don't lose, would make me then do this until I win. And then I'd be so addicted to it, I got to do it until I'm the best. So you got to admit, there's clearly some common thread between an Andrew Tate personality and like an Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, like powerhouse personalities.
Well, here's another one too. Donald Trump.
Just so real quick. Okay. I imagine Ghislaine Maxwell is a personality that's like, she liked being on Reddit. She liked talking about cats or whatever. Am I the asshole feeds? And then she started climbing and she's like, I got to be #1. Because you got to imagine when you're like, she ran an enterprise. Like, they're doing all this work. They're flying to other states, other countries. But like, you're telling me in between, like landing between LA and Times Square, Manhattan, you're just like Redditing? And why? To me, that's your TikTok. That's your collecting Pokemon cards. That's your thing that you love. That's your side hobby. But you're such an obsessive personality that you have to be #1, and you give it everything. Because to me, it doesn't make sense to be #1 and then not drop breadcrumbs like, yeah, Trump's a bad guy. Like, why would you not push your if you had a platform and you're #1, you've got attention, why would you not do anything with it that furthers your agenda? Unless you literally were just doing it for the thrills. And I like doing, everyday man posts.
Yeah. And I think another parallel we can draw upon too is Donald Trump did his own Twitter constantly. The man was just, he could not be without Twitter. Couldn't stop. He couldn't stop even when it was.
But it was all about him and always furthering his agenda. So
that's true.
I didn't want to draw upon that one because the difference is this is literally like you being the greatest politician of all time, or no, it's literally like if Hitler. Right? What did he do? He just the biggest mass human killing spree of all time, genocide. And let's just say on the flip side, he was the greatest pickleball player ever, right? Like I didn't just like pickleball. I'm the best pickleball player. So to me, it's like the interesting element is this was in no way used to further her life, her lifestyle, her professional hobby. This was so removed from that. For it to be just total random Reddit posts, like to me, it's like pickleball. It's like golf. Like you're doing a totally different thing. There's even somebody that picks up golf will tell you, yeah, I'm a lawyer. I picked up golf because I, take out judges and stuff, and it gives us an opportunity to build a relationship, right? So like a business person also gets a professional lifestyle benefit from this side hobby. Doing a stupid little podcast in no way furthers my profession. So you go like, why are you wasting your time doing it? You're not Joe Rogan. You're not #1. So the question is, why are you putting so much time into this thing if you're not trying to do something with it?
Yeah.
You must love the game.
Even because what's also interesting too, she's spending all this time doing it, and it was a conspiracy to suggest this was Ghislaine.
I go
Ghislaine Maxwell. It was a conspiracy, and then all of a sudden, like, okay, yeah, you start drawing the parallels, and it's too many coincidences right in a row where you can't ignore it. You can't ignore it. Now I think it's pretty much common fact or believed to be true that this was her. And it's again just wild. The time management of some of these people, psychopaths, really is what it's what they are. Let's call them what they are. They're psychopaths. You spend this much time doing this, and I go to dinner one night. I'm like, oh my God, my night's ruined. I have nothing. I have nothing else. My time is spent, and she's just out there gallivanting the world, doing all this crazy, absolutely crazy.
I mean, do you remember the manhunt trying to find her? It was like,
oh yeah,
oh no, let's get her. And then she like stumbled into like a English police's lap, and they're like, "Damn it,
yeah,
we're all waiting even looking for you."
We're all waiting for the kill switch to happen too.
Yeah,
apparently that was never a thing.
Have you seen? Speaking of Jeffrey Epstein, anybody in this room seen the efforts his brother is going to prove he was murdered?
Oh yeah, the brother is all
it's crazy,
all over the place.
He has become a public figure fighting for his brother's name, that he was murdered by the deep state. He is out here. He wants the videos. He wants the police prosecuted. He is like out here.
He was on every documentary he can get himself on about Jeffrey Epstein, just talking about I remember it was like the Hulu documentary, or it might have been Netflix.
Yeah,
where he's bringing out the bone of someone's neck, and it's like, see, it's crushed like this, and that's when you look at the autopsy, it was like that. He didn't kill himself. When you strangle, it doesn't happen. It's like, buddy, he's almost looking delusional at a certain point. He's got to kind of tone it down a little bit.
Which is, that being said, I think to kind of bring the topic to close, I'm going to just rip through some of these names. I got the list. I'll do a live reaction
because I didn't get all the names. I just, we all saw Stephen Hawking's.
Well, the top is pretty self-explanatory. Ghislaine, Prince Andrew, Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, David Copperfield.
Another one. That's a little interesting.
Now you see me. Alan Dershowitz, John Connolly, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yep.
Did you know Al Gore could give a shit about the climate when he was on Epstein's private plane?
Interesting.
Richard Branson. There's some interesting info about Richard Branson.
Yeah, it's not surprising, but at the same time, you think of his public image like, oh, he's just a fun, care-loving billionaire.
That's Virgin.
Yep, that's the Virgin guy.
Well,
turns out not much of a virgin.
Yeah, I wonder where he got the name.
Because he eats virgins.
Oh, okay.
Stephen Hawking, Michael Jackson. Here's one. Ehud Barak, Ehud, Ehud Barak, who is the former Israeli prime minister.
Ooh.
Everybody's favorite creep, Kevin Spacey. Even from he flew all the way from a land far, far away. George Lucas.
See that? Another one that surprised me. It's like, oh.
Kate Blanchett, Naomi Campbell, Bruce Willis. I'm glad your brain is mush now. Cameron Diaz, Glenn Dubin, Eva Anderson Dubin. The Dubins.
Now, do you think Cameron Diaz had a history in like softcore porn before she got big in like Hollywood? Do you think she might have?
She was the one that was trafficked.
She might have been the one that was trafficked.
I wouldn't doubt it, because we know how Hollywood worked.
Allegedly.
How bad do you want to be in The Mask? Naomi Chomsky. It's a political philosopher. Chris Tucker, man. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You guys want to find something interesting about that cat, RFK Jr.? Did you know he has an ex-wife that is dead, deceased?
No.
Yeah, not many people do.
How did this ex-wife die?
She suicided herself. Oh. Do you know who she was best friends with? And Ghislaine. Just convenient.
Who?
And Ghislaine Maxwell was her best friend. And he's moved on to greener pastures.
RFK,
the Grinch's wife.
Is running for president.
He is?
And
right.
He said all these celebrities were backing him, and all the celebrities came out. Like,
he knows what's going on. He's
Martin
like,
Sheen came out. It's like, I'm not backing you. What the hell are you talking about?
If you notice when they go he's like, yeah, the government juices are scrambling the kids' brains. And they're like, go on about the kids. He's like, I know nothing. Like, it's like, that's where he draws the line. It's like, but what about the island? I just don't know much about that island.
You know, anyone's allowed to own private
My
property.
wife did, but she got sad one day, and you can't ask her many questions anymore. Let's see. You know, a lot of these names are really. Oh, Ron Eppinger, he's a sex trafficker. You know, a lot of these I don't recognize now.
There starts to become. I'm seeing a little bit of a trend. So, like Michael Jackson, Kevin Spacey. Okay, all right. Those are people who've been convicted and or accused of some trafficking,
and may have gotten away from their accusation because the person died.
Pedophilia. So we're starting to build a list. You know, it's a lawyer term, preponderance of the evidence. We're starting to get to a point here. It's, hey, boy, it's too many coincidences. You know, Jeff, I don't think you're exclusively just hanging out with people who happen to be pedophiles. You might be either encouraging it or they might be seeking you out, knowing your lifestyle, allegedly.
Which to me, I don't know.
Well, it's not allegedly. He was convicted of it. I think it's Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh yeah,
yeah, he was convicted.
I mean, well, I think he died before the trial. They had
convicted.
They had depositions.
Didn't they have a previous trial before that?
Right. That's what I'm saying.
He died way early on.
Immunity for that by giving up other people, so he never faced charges.
No. He didn't give up any other people. It was a plea deal. And Alexander Acosta, who was the prosecutor in Florida at that time, who then was appointed into Trump's cabinet when he became president, gave the biggest plea deal that'll go down in history, the most extreme plea deal across the country, which was if you plead guilty, it will give not only you, but all co-conspirators immunity. And it's like, so then what's the point of even doing this? Like, what's the point of getting a guilty plea if you and the assholes you sold people to or use to sell people, nobody else can get in trouble too? Like, what did we accomplish for even getting a guilty plea?
Yeah.
Besides giving you an immunity. Wrapping thoughts. Here's my wrapping thoughts. Okay. I think it's cute and adorable that you and your moms are totally psyched about what might come out on this list. I could care less because to me, it's already reinforcing what I already know. These images, like you can do yourself the favor. Google Epstein flight logs, click this little tab that says images, and you can physically see the images. Do you want to see in Epstein's handwriting, Kevin Spacey, Bill Clinton, or sometimes you just see BC, right? Like, look at the flight logs. We've already known this. It's only making what is real grounded in your sheeple's reality. So I think it's cute. We're finally getting you a little bit closer to the finish line. You all still don't get it. You don't see how deep this goes. What's the theme of the first two subjects today? The agencies are outside of us and they have nothing but unfettered power. And then once you start digging into the creepy past of the people that are running your agencies, the folks you didn't vote for and the folks you can't rip out of there and who are dictating our whole lives, you'll realize real quick, they're all bad actors. And this is just the surface. It's not all just children and an appetite for that. It goes to drugs and all these other problems. I mean, we're not even going to get into CERN. Like anybody aware of CERN, a company that's like located in China and other remedial spots across the world where they're trying to break the dimension. Like these are just secret sciences that exist to none of us. It'll be cute. Like one day when they rip the fabric of our reality and grandma's getting sucked through it, you'll finally go, well, what's with that? And then we'll go, yeah. Remember that crazy kid, the idiot in Ohio that was saying all the crazy shit? He said this too. And he was right. Like there was a day I came home, 2015, leading into one of our biggest elections in this country. And I looked at my father coming home from college and I said, they have a child trafficking island. They have a P island, pedo island. I try not to say the word for YouTube. My dad looked at me and he said, don't you ever say that out loud. You better not be saying that to other people. If you say that out loud, they will put a straitjacket on you. You literally do not say that. And I'm like, but it couldn't be more real. Oh, but then in 2 years, when Disney does the La La Hulu doc. Well, now my dad goes, okay, it's real now. Now it's just common now, but we don't do anything about it. It's the shrug. Oh, well, we know about it, but we can't do nothing about it. That's where the problem lies, because this wasn't something new. This wasn't, but how many times do the canaries in your coal mine need to call this out for it to finally make you recognize that we're running out of oxygen, we're going to suffocate down here, and we're close to dying. So figure it out and get out of this hole. So my final thought is this. Seriously.
All right.
Final thought. I'm just glad you're finally getting to the finish line, and we really need to keep our ear to the ground on this, because what happened to Ghislaine Maxwell? The lady was convicted. Now what? You don't even know where she is. She's not even in jail. Nothing's going on anymore. So all of this is a charade. Shakespeare told us at the beginning of time, the world is their stage. So stop watching the silly little show and look at the assholes pulling the ropes and putting the stage together. That's my final thought.
That's your final thoughts. Wow. Strong words. I'm still, this story ain't over yet. What was the thing they always said? Yeah, about every documentary, about everything, the story they had with Jeffrey Epstein, is there was cameras all over that island. There was taped recordings of essentially everything. That's probably the next big shoe to drop. Will that ever drop?
No,
probably not. I don't see it. I don't see it happening, unfortunately.
Oh, real quick, because you're wrapping it up. Okay. Last thing, because you made a great point. Yeah. We're never going to get it. Right now, a judge ordered the list to be released, and it's almost impossible for us to just grab it. Like, where is it? I want to see it. Now, how funny is it that they held it up for days, and they go, well, we got this motion. And I was able to just get that from the clerk's office. I'm able to see on Twitter the motion, and the motion said John Doe 108, because that's how, to keep their identity safe, they all were numbered, John Doe 1 through 300 and something. So in this filing by this attorney, John Doe 108 is making the claim that if my identity is released to the public, it will destroy my reputation and result in my life being at danger. Okay. I would love for you to recite those words as an officer is writing you a ticket for a DUI. Like, I would get fired. I would actually lose my job, and my reputation would be ruined. And in lieu of that, you might as well kill me. And so I'm looking at this cop and I'm going, this will be the end of my life. You don't get it. And he's going, and you broke the law. And he would quite literally laugh at my tears as he continued to fill out the citation. So to me, understand that the laws only apply to us peasants. And the laws do not apply to the person that bought the lawmaker a yacht. So it's just scary, because what will flip everybody is seeing Hillary Clinton drinking adrenochrome. But that video quite literally will never exist, because every outlet that could possibly manifest it in your world is invested in benefiting from her never coming to light. I don't know, Brian, wrapping thoughts. We can get the last topic here.
I'm just really wondering what they're distracting us, or what they're distracting us with this list. What are they actually doing right now as we speak while they're releasing this list? And kind of reminds me, like, everything that we've kind of talked about, it could be subbed out for when they told us about aliens exist.
Just kind of forgot about that too.
It could be
you'll forget
directly
about this
substituted with Epstein's client list. Like, I don't know. It's just,
well, I think the issue too is it wasn't wrapped up so neatly in a bow that I think it wasn't like a slide, like, it wasn't a listicle and a slideshow presentation. Like, here's this guy, here's what they're. It wasn't like that. It's when you look at some of it is boring.
But it could be, right?
Documents.
But CNN's not going to advertise it. They're not going to bolster it everywhere. MSNBC, even Fox News. Fox News is going to pretend. They're going to be like, we tried. We tried to get as much of it as we can. They just made it so hard.
It's kind of a mutually assured destruction deal. There's no one wants to highlight it too much, because once you do, now it's war back and forth, and really everyone's got a lot to lose if this whole thing really came to.
And as soon as they start talking about it and really come out with it, the masses are going to come back with, what are we going to do about it? And they don't fucking know. So that's why they can't talk about it, because there's no good solution. So let's just move on to the next thing. Yeah. The election's coming up.
Yeah, the election's coming up. Exactly. That's a perfect way of presenting it.
You know what? Moving on to the next thing. This was about as close to breaking news as we've ever gotten on this show.
Yeah, I like it because it broke. I came across it. It happened yesterday evening, and came across it first thing this morning. Tried avoiding it, and the story just continued to expand. So, Brian, first off, secret underground network in New York City synagogue leads to a brawl between police and worshipers. Can you play that video for us?
Yes, sir.
And while he's getting that set up, David, what was interesting about this is how much chaos revolved around. Also, kick that volume down to a quarter.
Yep. It's a lot of this started off as like a real weird thing. Like, what's a tunnel doing under a synagogue? What's all this commotion doing in New York City? Because I think you and I discovered this story at roughly the same time. And it was, I kind of had the same thought as you did. Like, well, that's kind of weird. This is interesting. This is just goofy. And then it just started coming more and more. It started becoming a bigger and bigger and bigger deal. And then all of a sudden we're now in a situation like, oh, what's going on here?
Yeah. So Brian, let's hit play, and David, let's
react to some of this.
Can you also push the TV to point towards the audience a bit too?
Yeah.
Just the corner right in front of you.
Yeah. There you go.
Perfect.
Nice.
Thank you.
All right.
So there were Jewish people fleeing from all corners around this block. So the story is that a local synagogue in Brooklyn, and it's one of the biggest in, I guess, the country, but also specifically New York, which is predominantly Jewish. So it being a big meeting place, you can keep playing this. It being a predominantly Jewish place, it being the biggest synagogue is a big deal. There was a network of tunnels running through the bottom of this place. And, Hasidic Jewish students riot against New York police officers who were called to inspect a secret tunnel dug under the synagogue by students. And this happened Monday, January 8th. A group of Hasidic Jew worshippers were arrested amid a dispute over a secret tunnel built underneath the historic Brooklyn synagogue, setting off a brawl between police and those who tried to defend the makeshift passageway. So the discovery of this tunnel came about because this world headquarters for the Jewish community prompted an emergency structural inspection, and this came through the city, and it actually did happen Tuesday, so I guess it did happen today.
I think they're trying to. I think they're trying to fill the hole.
Yeah, they were.
Well, no. They literally. So they found out about this tunnel network, right? And the way they found out about it was some guy. A lot of people were having this complaint, and finally, some guy was able to bring credit to this.
Put evidence in front.
Well,
just some
he kept saying, "I'm hearing voices in my house. There's somebody living in my house. Somebody needs to find this." And it's just a bunch of Jews running under his house, through these tunnels. And so what were they going to do? Like an ant's nest, they were literally just going to fill the whole thing up with concrete. They had the streets with trucks, multiple cement trucks, and they were going to pull them in there, fill it in, and then just Jewish people just started busting out of the walls.
No, don't do that.
Right. They're just flying out of the walls. And the chaos of the situation. Here's what grabs your attention, raises your eyebrow and makes you start being a little curious. Why are you scurrying? The libertarian in me. There's a lady on TikTok, this blonde lady, who is fighting with her local government because she's digging a bunker under her house. And she doesn't have the permits. And the city's position is, we just don't want this house falling in on you. We need this to be structurally sound with an architect so that you're not taking down primary foundation and the whole house fucking implodes on you. So we're really only caring about your own good. I can respect that narrative, but on the flip side, I don't like that I have liberty and you're intruding on it. So I want to take a position in defense of these people that it's like, if it's your church and you want to dig under it, then feel free to. But what prompted these tunnels, I guess, was COVID. So this all kind of, the network started to began itself during COVID. Probably because you really weren't, especially psychopath New York. You weren't allowed outside. You weren't allowed to enjoy the virtues of New York, and you wanted to go to your neighbor's house. You couldn't have more than 3 people over your house. Okay, well, guess what? You're not going to see me under his house. So we created tunnels, and now what? We found other uses for it. I don't think it's in this video, but I saw a video where they went through the tunnels, and there's a baby carriage.
There's like dirty mattresses.
Why?
It's just a weird.
What is a baby doing under your church tunnel?
So, like, the Jewish people might not like this comparison, but does this not make you almost think they're almost like the Palestinians who are building tunnels under
secret tunnels and
stuff that
neighbors
wouldn't be a target in the event of something?
Well, Doug, it would be really unfair for you to make the comparison that the Jewish people dug those Palestinian holes and made them equipped for the Palestinians to take over so they could have an excuse to blow up the hospital. But that's neither here nor there.
Building tunnels. Are people getting ready for a war that we don't know about?
Well, if you look at these tunnels, I don't know if they're really going to be holding up too much. This doesn't.
Dude, and that's also sound. That's what I was going to say. They're so janky that also is attention grabbing.
They're not built by the best and the brightest.
Some of those videos, they did not look sound. No. I wouldn't even walk through.
Wait, repeat your thought, because you guys were talking to each other.
No, like I saw some of the videos. It's like I almost can understand the city's side of what they at least said their reasoning is to keep it sound or whatever, like the structural investigation. It's like, well, you can't really just dig. Like those don't look like they're holding up foundation. They don't look like they put in support struts or anything.
Yeah, and I don't know the property laws in New York City, but I'm assuming you don't just infinitely own the ground below you.
Well, and that's a big piece to it too. So let's have like a property class here.
Yeah.
You actually don't own your land. That's what's hilarious. You think you do, but that's part of the ruse of recording your deed. You are really just owning the right to use this land. The government owns all of it. Yeah, so that's why you only have so much, you only own so much air above you, and they'll say you own the dirt, but only to a certain extent, because you can't go underground, because we say policy's a foundation, but really we can't police you under there. So it's one. Now, how do we police that real estate? Your tunnel comes under my house.
Yep.
Is it the first to dig the tunnel? We can't live in that type of world, because then I'm just going to start breaking your tunnels.
Well, I'm just going to start just digging tunnels everywhere.
Right.
If this is like first come, first serve, well, guess what? I'm going to own all the tunnels.
Right.
And in New York City, if too many tunnels, it's all just going to collapse in on itself, which I think is probably the real big concern. Because I think a couple people probably,
especially New York.
New York is a city of tunnels. With all the sewage.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that
those
too.
are structured tunnels. They're not built by.
Okay, let's get to Brian's thing before we make this.
Who called the cops?
No. So a guy living in the neighborhood was saying he heard people in his house.
Yeah,
and they discovered that the tunnel was running under his house, and he was hearing people walking under his house.
So he's probably appealing to city authorities and saying, "Hey, there's something going on here. This is weird. There's people in tunnels. I hear people in tunnels." And okay.
And he wasn't the first.
If someone comes up to you, it's like, hey, there's like fucking tunnels under this.
But he didn't even suspect tunnels. He was suspecting that there's something.
Oh, just
because I'm hearing people in my house.
Okay.
And he wasn't the first person to say that. So now we need to start looking at what's going on here, because you don't have ghosts. Something's going on here. So it was just, like you said, appealing to, local authorities. Okay, but now, let's actually get to that topic then. Talking about, can you change this camera angle? Because it's really just the corner.
You want me to do
just
full
Yeah, it's beautiful.
because you guys can't see it.
Well, yeah, and they're also the brawl with the police departments. There's probably some members in that community going, "Hey, whoa, don't fill the tunnels yet." Paul's down there.
But then
he's taking a nap.
There's also this balance between it was the local, some articles are calling them the student extremists, some of them are, but it's like the young kids, right? People probably in their late teens, 20s, and they all band together and created this network. And really another way it was discovered was when they busted through the wall of the synagogue. And they're like, whoa. This is a piece of history. We can't afford for you to mess with the structure and foundation of this, and then we lose such an important, structure.
It's the historic home of like the dude who founded that like Synagogue sect or something. Like he died in '94, but he had run that group for like 50 years before that or something. So it's like pretty historic to that group of people. So I'd be pretty mad if I found a bunch of kids who just dug tunnels.
I don't.
It.
There is, if you start just veering your eyes away a little bit from this whole thing, there is some conspiracy. There's conspiracy threads you can start tugging on here. I don't think the leadership of this community is going, well, you know what, let's build some tunnels and do some nefarious things. If that was the case, they would probably be a bit more structured than the actual tunnels are.
So that being said, you represented. I was waiting for the video to end to open that can of worms, but like Doug brought it up or triggered the thought. New York is already embedded with a whole tunnel network, and a lot of that, vast majority of it, is in public. Yeah, the subway is, and you have public transportation that goes through these tunnels, but nobody wants to talk about during the crazy QAnon period when people were sick of being locked up and they started adventuring. The amount of curious tunnels that were found under New York City, where they would go into the sewers and you follow them long enough to find a tunnel network that if it was like perfect tile, like absolutely gorgeous. And it led you to like a total office building. And you're like, wait. Like 200 yards back is everybody's floating turds.
Yeah. But
here is some secret agency. Like, don't forget what Edward Snowden did for you, for all of us, right? What did he tell us? The biggest piece that made him an enemy of the state, and which isn't treasonous because he stood up for the American people. What he said was, these people are illegally breaking the Constitution and your liberties. And they were like, whoa, dude, you broke the law, telling them we were breaking the law. And he's like, fuck you. And so not only did he tell us that the agencies we know of were committing wrongdoing, but the little thing that he just touched upon and kept moving on, because the bigger piece, the floodgates that he broke, was the agencies we knew about and what they did. But then he goes, and real quickly, and then you don't even want to know what the agencies you don't know about are doing. And it goes back to that Leonardo DiCaprio Once Upon a Time in Hollywood meme where he's like, wait. It's like, wait, go back to that part. That part. The agencies we don't know about, the laws they're breaking? So where do you think they are? Like, where were we? We went I think it was like Gentili's bachelor party or something. We were somewhere in the Rosie's wedding.
Okay.
When we were going to that place in the middle of the boonies of Ohio.
Yeah.
We're driving, and the GPS, I look up this road and I'm like, it's just like broken. It's just gravel, dilapidated road.
Yep.
And the map recognizes it going like a little bit of the distance. You can tell it goes even way further than what the GPS recognizes. It didn't have a road name, but it showed that it was like a public way. And then I switched it to from the map view to the satellite view.
Mm. And
dude, it could be private property, right? But just beyond this trailer park that we're in, aside from it, was this just like crazy, very complex like building and multiple, it was like a network of buildings and they all were connected. And I'm just like, that's where you would do this. Like you would do this in the middle of nowhere where no one's looking. Like everybody's looking under the sewer of New York, right? Like it's got to be here. This is the epicenter of everything. I'm sure there's stuff in there, but why would they do that when they could go in the middle of New Hampshire and never be seen? Or Montana? Like how much of Utah is totally untouched? But then it gets weird. I did a whole segment. It was one of my bigger segments before when the show was just kind of rogue, going to quick mystery band meetings and like I didn't have a studio. I was out and about. We did one in the woods up in a tree, and I'm talking to one of my buddies, and we did a whole deep dive on the network of tunnels in the Grand Canyon and how the Smithsonian is like this protector of like how you can only stay to like the very few public zones. And during the gold mine era, there's all these news articles of miners finding like Egyptian artifacts, but this whole network of tunnels through the Grand Canyon. Like, that's where you would do it. And then you just don't let people go over there. Like, yeah, no, you got to, this is because we want to preserve it. We want it to be beautiful for, no, you just don't want me to find that tunnel that leads me to Epstein Island 2. Like, or again, just an alien in a vat. Like, that's your Area 52. Well, what is Area 50 and 49 and 48, 47? No, there's only one. And we picked 51 because we like the number. No, those exist elsewhere. So it's just interesting because New York is like this infested nest of tunnels. The vast majority of them are not public. And it really makes you curious as to like, is this a part of that? Is this learned from that? Is this like, well, hey, it works over here. Why not? Like, to me, it's a very interesting element. And what's even more interesting is how every person that saw this maybe not picked up on like all these weird conspiracies and theories, but at the same time, everybody thinks something weird is going on here. It's like your gut is picking at something.
It's too unusual for it to just be its own thing. Like it's not goofy enough to where like the guy in the ball that's trying to go across the ocean on his own little hamster wheel ball thing. It's not like that level of goofy. Just like what are they doing in those tunnels? Maybe it's just something specific with the tunnel. Someone digs a tunnel. Like what are they doing? No one's digging holes for fun.
Right.
That's not why they do that. So what are they doing? They're probably just going in between. I think it's a COVID thing. Like you just go in between. You know, you're out or. Oh boy, this stay with me here. So, you know, are you familiar with the term Jew wall?
Oh, I am now.
So in New York City and several areas in Ohio.
Fun term to my lexicon. Tell me about the Jew wall.
So in New York City, there is about a thin wire that goes around a certain precinct within New York City. And under, you know, if you're a very Orthodox Jew on Saturdays, you're not allowed to do anything.
Right.
And the most Orthodox of the Orthodox go like, well, I can't turn lights on. I can't do. Yeah. There's certain things they were doing back in the biblical times that there's no parallel for today. So they just said everything's off limits. So what they did is the rabbis, hey, you know, if you're within this wall, you're allowed to take your keys outside. You're allowed to turn some lights on. You're allowed to, you know, you can do.
Or
things.
They get a Shabbos skoy named Taco.
I don't think they're allowed to do that, but there is
Alex gets it.
But there is it's almost like they built their own loophole that the rabbis just allow. So with these tunnels, I could easily see some idiot justifying to another idiot. It's like, well, you know, God can't see us if we're under dirt. But we got to be under dirt by like this much, and He can't see us.
It's almost like it's the same idiot that's like, you know, they think they can hide from God under the rock. It's almost like that's the same idiot that's like, oh, I'm God's chosen people if I stand on this rock, not that rock, but I'll kill every Palestinian, any person that gets on the way of me standing on this rock. I'll kill him because this is what gets me close to God. But if I sneak under the rock, then nobody will know that I turned on a light and played with my iPhone.
Or it's like the Mormons and soaking. Well, if I don't thrust, it's not sex. Okay, buddy.
Soaking.
Okay.
What a term.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I'm a big soaker.
I don't think there's probably a few people who practice soaking, but it's probably not as common as we would like hope. I'd hope that's a common thing.
Just diet like an Easter egg. What's up?
Bed sheets are the best contraception.
That would be painful.
That would be. That'd be a little rough. It's like,
and you can't really soak with a bed sheet.
No. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's got
the bed sheet soaks.
Yeah, you got to be there for a while. You got to saturate. Oh, geez. Anyway,
well, we went down the right road to wrap this on. There was a lot of soaking going on in an island, Little St. James. Disney cruise stopped there. Ironically, look it up. Disney cruise stopped at Little St. James Island. That being said, thank you all for joining us this week. It's been a crazy episode. The whole purpose of the live episode is to get you involved. So we appreciate all the people that dove into the comments to get involved and join the dialogue. But that being said, Brian and I have started a new live show. We're going to go live every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern time. Think of it like your Sunday morning cartoons. It's a reaction channel. So we're laughing, we're squinting, we're confused.
We're having a good time.
Sharing on the emotions as we go through, sifting through the wild world of human videos. That's really what it is. Just a reflection on humanity. So Rethink Actions is live across all platforms, but to catch it on YouTube, you got to go to our new YouTube channel. So that's Rethink Actions. Otherwise, it's streamed on all our other platforms as normal. But you can find all of our content at our website at www.rethinktankpodcast.com. And otherwise, guys, we appreciate you joining us, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.
Hey, take care.